Hopefully. Hey, all right, I'm going to put on speaker view.
All
Okay.
right.
All right.
Are
Okay.
we back?
Light-
Okay.
Dim the lights, please. Thank you. All right.
Woo. I'm on. Okay. Oh, I love that women can just make it happen. We are good at making it happen. Way to go, ladies. Hello everyone. I am so delighted to be there with you. Uh, a women's retreat is one of my favorite places to be. So I kind of feel like I'm joining you, but I am in my husband's man cave. That's why I have this background behind me, but it's the quietest place in the house. So hopefully it's not too distracting. But I really thank you for having me tonight. And hopefully you're not too relaxed after your relaxation sessions. Hopefully you can make it to the end of the night. But I want to share a little bit about my story. And I had Cindy play that video, just kind of a retrospective of our life, because I wanted it to be a chance for you to see, uh, kind of envision what I'm talking about as I talk through my talk. And I loved that song by Alanis Morissette that said, "My mission is to keep the light in your eyes ablaze." And to me, that really is our mission as moms of autistic kids, of our lovely children and our young adults. And so that's really what I want to talk a little bit about, and that fire behind those eyes. And so let's just hop into it then. So this was a really big year for me and my family. My husband and I celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary this year. Um, Thank you. And our little dog turned 13 this year, and our little Lucy dog, she is now officially running the household. She's just gone into total diva status, so that happened. And our son Josiah, he turned 18 in October, which was mind-blowing, that he had turned 18. And so it's been a year where we've really done a lot of reflection, and we've kind of gone back through the years, the ups and the downs, and even spent more time going through our childhood and just talking about different things. And my husband and I are suckers for 80s and 90s nostalgia. So we really, really slammed Josiah with like a lot of 80s and 90s music and made him a fan whether he wanted to or not. So we have really enjoyed going back to really the best decades in music together as a family. So that's been really good. So it was really interesting as I sat before our computer, much like I am right now, the day before Josiah turned 18, and it was that fabled guardianship meeting, it was online court. And uh, I was sitting there, and I had so many emotions, thinking about Josiah turning 18. And of course, years and years before, you think about that day, and you think about all your hopes and dreams that you would have for your child. And I, on one hand, I was sitting there and I was kind of going, I shouldn't be in a guardianship meeting right now. I should be in a meeting about him starting college, a college interview or something like that. And I had those moments. And yet, I can honestly tell you at the same time, I also had this overwhelming sense of pride in Josiah that he had come so far. Life has not been what we had expected it to be. Um, you know, we obviously had hoped that he would have speech, that there would be, we started things out like, okay, everything that we can do, let's just make him as normal as possible, right? That's kind of the initial goals. But I looked at how far Josiah had come, and I've really been homeschooling him since the pandemic, and that was kind of thrust into that. But it has been the very best thing for him and for us, it kind of saved him in a way because he was really having a hard time in special ed kind of classroom situation. And it's really brought him out and brought him forward in a lot of ways. And then we've started working on a lot of physical things with fitness and fitness integration therapy, which has been great for him. He's doing care packs that we assemble for people that are in senior living homes and people who are going through cancer. And we're really excited as we're going into this new year. We're working on starting an entrepreneurial little business with another young man that is just turning 21 actually on Monday. And so they're going to have, and he also has autism, and they're going to have this little gift box, popcorn and joy business. It's called Kernels of Joy. And with poetry and popcorn and encouragement. So, you know what? We have a lot to look forward to, and I'm excited about that. And but it really has caused me to think more just about the journey that my family's been on. And I think about those early days when they kind of prepare you for, you know, this experience. And I was thinking about the poem that most of us know, right? Like, okay, you were going on vacation to Italy and you end up in Holland and you somehow come to love windmills and wearing wooden shoes, right? You know that poem I'm talking about? Um, but you know, it may not quite be like that. But you know, so oftentimes they talk about how, okay, autism, this world of autism that you've entered, um, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. Um, you know, this is a real journey, that sort of thing. And I was thinking about that, and I thought, you know, this is not really even a journey. I thought it really is much more of a pilgrimage. And years ago, I came across the definition of the word pilgrimage, that somebody had, and I thought it really spoke to me. So I want to share what that is. It says a pilgrimage is a sacred journey with a holy purpose. Every step of the way has meaning. The pilgrim knows that life-giving challenges will emerge. A pilgrimage is not a vacation. It is a transformational journey during which significant changes take place. New insights are given, deeper understanding is attained, new and old places in the heart are revisited, blessings are received, healing takes place, and on return from the pilgrimage, life is seen from different eyes. Nothing will ever quite be the same again. And I really believe that that is true of this journey, this pilgrimage. And I know that I'm speaking to a very diverse group of moms, and our children are probably anywhere on the spectrum. We have different backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds, different beliefs, you know, different experiences. But I really hope that I can connect with you that, you know, that's the thing about moms with autism. Moms that have children with autism, when we meet together, there's something about looking in one another's eyes and saying, I know, I know your journey. Like I see myself in your eyes. You're beautiful and probably very tired eyes, but you look great. You look good. Um, but hoping that you can get something out of the journey that my family has been on, and especially this rich world of Josiah's that we've had a chance to be privy to. So real quick, the early days, how my husband and I met. So we actually had met in college. We were working a summer job. He was a army soldier set in 1875, and I was an army laundress, and we were working in Bismarck, North Dakota. Uh, and we worked at this fort, which was where General George Armstrong Custer and his wife Libby lived before he went on to have not such a great day with the Plains Indians and at the Battle of Little Bighorn. So we were giving tours through the general's house, and that's how we met. And then he ended up coming to the college that I went to, and I used to be in a lot of theater, and he was also doing some theater. So you could say that our early days were very dramatic in nature, but only of the pretend kind. And you know, we end up getting married. We move out to Minneapolis area, and we really had a great time. We were getting established, trying to make good decisions for our future. And, you know, we were stable in our jobs, we were stable in our church, in our community, and we had friends, and things were going along really well. And we're about 8 years into our marriage, and we were kind of looking at each other going, things are getting a little bit routine, you know, and we're sitting there at the table, and my husband says, you know, maybe we should take a cooking class or something. I was like, yeah, maybe, or maybe it's time to start a family. And a year later, we welcomed our little baby Josiah, and we called him Josiah. We love the name. It meant fire of the Lord. So that's where you get Josiah's fire from. So we had our little baby, and he was happy and beautiful and healthy and fun. And, you know, we had our challenges being a dual working family, certainly, but you know, everything was really normal, and normal was good. And little did we know that even though Josiah had been developing normally, he was hitting his medical milestones. Not long before his second birthday, life would never be normal again, and things drastically changed. It went very quickly. It just seemed like overnight. It was definitely like a period of about 3 weeks. He started losing words. He lost eye contact. He wouldn't respond to his name. He kept flipping the light switch on, off, on, off, on, off, and he would get very perseverating with wheels and turning his cars upside down and spinning his wheels. And I tried so hard to get his attention, and I couldn't understand like what was happening to our son. And it was terrifying. And I remember he had kind of a rash that moved around his body, and he had double pink eye. And I had never really associated those two things at the time, that there was something going on. But after about 4 months of screening and things like that, we find ourselves in a boardroom. And I remember the boardroom table. And of course, when they put like a big box of tissues in the middle of the table, that really signifies to me that this is not good news. And we kind of knew in our hearts already what was coming. But I remember they put the folder on the table, and I opened up the folder, and this phrase popped out at me, and it said, autism spectrum disorder, no known cause, no known cure, lifelong. And in that moment, I felt like it was like a gavel came down on the table, and a sentence was passed on the life of my little 2-year-old. And I remember, as a mother and as a believer in God, there was this cry within me that said, where is hope when there is no hope? What am I supposed to do with this? And of course, being the achiever personality that I was, achiever, go-getter, kind of perfectionist personality, which autism just beat out of me. it really beat that out of me, but that's how I was used to, if anything could be done by hard work and the goal achieved, I was going to do it. So of course I threw myself into research and therapies, and we found the gold standard of behavioral therapy that we were supposed to put our child into, and there my little 2-year-old was sent off to 40 hours a week to learn how to play. Um, and there's something about this that it feels like they tell you that you need to push the gas pedal all the way down to the floor because you have this 5-year window. Um, the earlier the better. And it's so scary because you're just like, I've got to get everything in that I can. I've got to do everything that I can. And you're pushing the gas pedal, and yet at the same time, someone just throws the emergency brake on, and you're just burning rubber, and you're burning out all your best resources. And this one thing that is autism becomes many things, and it affects your marriage, and it affects your job, and it affects your relationships and your hopes and your dreams, and it affects your sleep. Oh my gosh. And it affects your faith that there is goodness for you still in the land of the living. I remember very distinctly, my husband and I went to an introductory course for parents that had just got the diagnosis that their child had autism. And it was horrifying. Honestly, I just sat there shell shocked. Um, they they really were trying to say nicely, like, don't get your hopes up. You have to learn to cope with this diagnosis. And they threw these stats out. You've probably all heard them, like X% of marriages don't make it with an autism diagnosis. Mothers have stress that's like PTSD of a combat soldier. And my personal favorite was you can expect as a parent of a child with autism to experience what is called chronic sorrow. What is chronic sorrow? It is described as a continuous grief response to a non-death related loss that rarely subsides over time. Without relief or solution, a sense of powerlessness can grip a caregiver and lead to chronic sorrow. Okay, so there I am going, this is what I have to expect? This is what I have to expect. Like, wow. And let me just say, I'm not making light of any of those things because there is truth to all of those things that I just said. But at the same time, I sat there with that, and I just kept feeling the burden get heavier and heavier and heavier on me. And it was basically like, welcome to autism. It's gonna suck. So buckle up, buttercup, And something inside of me, this righteous indignation just said, but 1 Thessalonians 4:13 says, I don't want you to be uninformed. We don't grieve like the world grieves, as those who have no hope. And what about Jeremiah 29:11, these songs and prayers that I just prayed and as I nested over my little baby? For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. What am I supposed to do with that? And then I remember rocking my little 2 and 3-year-old who would wake up in the middle of the night and have these like night terrors, and he'd arch his back and he'd scream and he'd cry, and I'm holding him and I'm praying over him and I'm singing over him, and there was this life verse that from the Bible that we used as his life verse as we dedicated him as a baby. And it was Zephaniah 3:17. For the Lord your God is living among you. He is a mighty Savior. He will take delight over you in gladness. With his love, he will calm all your fears. He will rejoice over you with joyful songs, Josiah. And I would speak that over him and I would pray that over him. And I just decided, even early on, that like I can't do it like that. I can't cope through this. I must hope. I must hope. And I actually decided that I was going to start blogging my journey, and I called my blog Hoping, Not Coping. I could not find anything, even from a spiritual standpoint, that really outlined the spiritual journey that a person goes on. What happens when you're trying to help your child, but what about like spiritually what's happening to you? And so I just thought I'm just going to start blogging about my feelings and my experiences. But you know what? The thing is about hope is that it's not just wishful thinking. In fact, now it's like they're coming out with these articles from psychology, and there's one from Psychology Today, and just recent, like a year ago, it says the new science of hope. And I think this is so funny because, like, tell the people who wrote the Bible about the new science of hope. But it says hope is the only positive emotion that requires negativity or uncertainty to be activated. Without bleakness, the spark for hope isn't ignited. We have no need for hope without sorrow. Low hope people fail to realize that the negativity or the uncertainty is a call to action, one that can serve to change their perception about a situation. And later it goes on to say, hope increases a sense of meaning in life and identification and realization of goals and dreams, even in the midst of adversity. Individuals with high hope set loftier goals and are more likely to realize them. And that's because hope is a better predictor of success than intelligence or innate ability alone. So this is not just like wishful thinking or raising your, hope, or risking, should I hope only to get my hopes dashed? This is like neuroscience. This is like quantum physics. This does something. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not yet seen. And that would definitely play out in our lives through the roller coaster of low hope and high hopes, certainly. So anyway, I decided that in my mind. That was perspective shift number one that kind of came on our journey, is I'm going to hope and not cope. But we started taking action, and like I said, I was this achiever, and just go with Josiah, and everything that they're doing at his clinic, I'm doing at home, and trying to do all these behavioral modification things and all of this stuff. And sadly, he reaches his 5th birthday. We're sitting in another boardroom at his clinic, where he had gone to therapy center for years at that point, 3 years. And they said, I'm so sorry. We know that you guys have done so much. You have done everything. But we're looking at Josiah, we've really reassessed him, and we don't even know if he understands what we're saying. He hasn't been able to achieve speech, so we really feel like we need to get him communicating. We're going to kind of abandon speech, and he will likely be, one of the 40% or so that will never speak. So we really feel like we need to shift the focus to help him to at least tell us what his wants are and go to picture exchange communication. And wow, that was really a tough pill for me to swallow, because I felt like as they were showing me all the charts, right? Like the paper of this is where he should be, this is where he is. And I felt like I was a student again, you know. I wanted to be and always was the straight A student. And I felt like it was like, your child is failing. And by the way, that means that you have failed. Not that they said that, but that's how I felt, right? But at that same meeting, a psychologist in the room said something that changed me. She said, Tahni, Joe, I I tell you, autism, it's like a hairball. It's just all over. It's not like that. And Josiah is getting tons of therapy here, 40 hours a week. I want to encourage you to go home, take him home and play with him and just be his mom and be his dad and don't miss the joy of parenting. See what he likes to do, see what lights him up, see what brings a smile to his face, and do more of that with him. We'll do the therapy. And I was like, are you serious? Because it just gave me like this permission to actually start enjoying this child instead of feeling like I was failing him. So that was another thing that I just want to put out there. Is another perspective shift was that pursuing joy with your child is doing something. It is doing something. There is something very powerful in just joy. So we get to the point where I'm gonna have to shift into trying to help him as a child that is going to be nonverbal. And one of my friends, or a couple of my friends, other autism moms, had mentioned that they had seen a documentary on HBO and it was called A Mother's Courage. And they said that there's a kid like Josiah and he ends up being able to like spell uh spelling on a letter board, and he's in there and like, come on over and we'll watch this together. And I remember watching this show, and that was just a small part of the show, A Mother's Courage. You can still see it on Prime Video. And my eyes were just like filled with tears because that looks so much like my son. And I thought, I have to get this for my son. I have to do this. And Josiah was about 6 at the time. And I found that this rapid prompting method, there was a lady in Green Bay, Wisconsin, which was 5.5 hours from us, that actually had apprenticed under Soma, who had started RPM, and she had come back to her hometown to start a clinic. I couldn't take Josiah on an airplane, so like that was something that I could do. So we go and I'll tell you, anytime that you want to do something that is going to be really powerful, I feel like there's so much resistance to it. But we get there, and right away, I hear something that changes me. She says, first of all, I want you to know you need to presume competence. You need to talk to him like he is at his age level and teach him at his age level. And I was like, what? I was told that he had like the mind of a toddler. Like I was told like less words is best. Touch circle, want snack, And so that like kind of blew my mind. And then as she's working with him, I could see that he was in there. And she says to me, I can tell from his stims, he's an auditory learner. Yes, he likes to look at things and press buttons and stuff like that to hear music and stuff like that, but he's an auditory learner. He's listening. He's listening. So I'm going to challenge you to do this. I want you to talk more, not less, to him, and go and talk to him as if he is blind. So when you're walking to the park, talk about everything, kind of stream of consciousness. look at the leaves on the trees and then talk about photosynthesis and talk about the different seasons and just like let it go from one to the other and just share knowledge and share just information that way. And that just like sparked me because I felt like I didn't have that kind of connection with my son. And I felt like, when you're not getting that visual feedback back, that they're like paying attention and they're with you and they're shaking their head at you, you just kind of almost stop talking. How many hours did we spend in the car without me saying a word? Talking about the train that went by or anything like that, you just kind of shut down. And that just opened me up to start talking with him again and seeing him differently. So fast forward, Josiah, we see that he's in there. He has this 4-day camp, and that was like a huge revelation to see that he could choose, and he was just little still, like 6. But he was showing that he could choose the right answers. And I take him home and I try to do this at home, and the little stinker, he resisted me every step of the way. Isn't that the way it goes, right? You get home and they just act up on you. But I thought, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this at least 25 minutes, 3 times a week. I don't care if I spend half the time just trying to get him to sit in the chair. A year goes by and we're making some progress. I think I'm trying to teach him how to spell, but we take another refresher course about a year later, and she tells me, some of the things that I was not quite doing quite right. And I see again, like he's in there, like he actually spelled something that I didn't give, or she didn't give him to spell. And she said, "What color do you want the car to be?" And he spelled brown. Like that was his first just independent answer, open. And I was like, what? So I bring him home and we're doing these lessons and we're kind of, trucking along a little bit better. It just gave me this renewed hope. And one day, my husband's out of town. It's a Saturday night and I'm at the kitchen table and with him, and I said, "Josiah, do you want to read from the children's Bible or do you want to read from Everybody Poops?" I know it's weird that these were the two choices, but they were that night. And he chooses the children's Bible, and I open up the children's Bible, read a little, just a little passage about how Jesus healed the blind man. So I say that, and then you kind of you teach it, and then you ask the question. So I said, "Josiah, Jesus healed the blind man. What did Jesus do? Did he HEAL heal the blind man, or PLAY play with the blind man?" Ripped the paper in half because I had written that on a piece of paper, and tap heal, tap play. He chooses heal correctly, and I said, "Okay, yes, let's spell heal." So Josiah at that time actually was really drawn to the iPad, which I was an early adopter of because he liked our iPod touches and he was like so drawn to the iPad. So I had actually found that there was an app that looked like the letterboard that I was able to put on the iPad. And we kind of had the letterboard, we had the iPad, and we were kind of trying to go between the different ones. He chose that he wanted to use the one with the iPad. I said, "Let's spell heal." And he touches G. I was like, "Oh, he's missing it." And then he touches O. I'm like, "Go." He goes on to spell his first ever independent sentence, "God is a good gift giver." I was like, am I on candid camera? Like, did I finally just crack? What just happened there? And it was all, no spaces. It was all just running together. God is a good gift giver. And I'm like, uh, whoa, yes, Josiah, God is a good gift giver, but how do you know that? And he goes on to spell, "God is very capable." Okay, so I'm gonna get back to that. But I want to take a little time out and I'll get back to that. So leave that on the shelf for a second. This was another perspective shift for me, okay? The power of the alphabet, you guys. I know that sounds simple, but the power of the alphabet. God bless picture communication. It has its place, but picture communication can only go so far. I think about my own self, and I think about if somebody told me to sit and write an entire just Facebook status using only emojis. That would absolutely frustrate me. This alphabet that we've been given as language it used to be called by the ancients that it was an invention of the gods. Or if you were Hebrew, this was from Jehovah God to us, the Hebrew alphabet. And there was this thing that happened that when civilization went from recording in pictures or hieroglyphs to being able to use symbols to spell out sounds and words, that changed everything, you guys. That propelled civilization forward. I am telling you, everybody, if you presume competence, if you think your kids can even learn the complexity of, I think it's harder to like find the categories with PECs and things like that than it is to like teach them the alphabet, which they already know, and help them to point and help them to get spelling. It is an elegant solution. It is an ancient and elegant solution. And don't be afraid of the alphabet. It should start early on. I'm just telling you. That was my little timeout, because the thing is that they understand language. Language is in a different part of the brain than this apraxic body that has a hard time, maybe with speech and maybe with executing motor planning, but they understand language. So just that switch can change everything. Back to our story. Okay, so all of a sudden, Josiah at this time, he's like, oh, God is very capable. And I'm just freaking out right now. Okay, like Josiah, but how do you know this? And he spells auntie told an angel to tell me. And I'm like, auntie? Okay, auntie. I had never spoken to Josiah about Auntie. I don't think anybody ever talked about Auntie in his presence in any way. Auntie was my great aunt that lived with us until I was about 15 years old. And she died at age 89. Auntie was quite a character. She was what would be called a spinster, she never married. And she was she had gone blind a couple of times when she was a child. She really knew a lot of dates and history. She was very sensitive to sounds. She always had such a hard time with thunderstorms and stuff. When I look back, it's so funny because in reflection, I think Auntie was on the spectrum. So of course Auntie told an angel to tell me, because I think Auntie saw that we were really struggling down here. So Josiah knows Auntie, and I don't understand, how does he know Auntie? So there were so many things that were happening at this moment, but I can tell you that something happened. Something happened. And I give so much credit to those modes of communication. It could be RPM, rapid prompting method, different iterations kind of that have spawned from that, spelling to communicate. Also the spellers method. I'm currently in a spellers method online course to help Josiah more with his motor control and body. I just give so much credit where credit is due with those tools. But what that tool did was unlock what was behind it. And with that, I give all the credit and glory to God. I don't know what else to say. Something supernatural happened, something cataclysmic happened. Heaven invaded my space. And that is the truth. I wasn't expecting it. I was not, it didn't happen the way I would have thought it would have happened. It's just what happened. And this is just my story. So I start asking a lot of questions to Josiah. And of course, that night and that weekend, I'm asking, what's your favorite color? I mean, I'm getting to know my son for the first time. I'm asking questions like, what cartoon do you like? And you know, what do you like to do? What's your favorite musical instrument, anything, just to get information. And he's sharing these different things. And then as time goes on, I'm saying to him, he keeps writing these like elaborate and profound things. And I'm like, I stopped him one time and I said, Josiah, how do you know how to spell these things? How do you know these words? There were some words I had to look up because I didn't even know what the words were. And then it's like, oh, that's okay. That is a word. And he told me, Jesus taught me the order of sounds. And I was like, Jesus gave you hooked on phonics? Or what? Jesus taught you the order of sounds. And as time went along, I kept seeing more and more that he kept sharing these things that were like wisdom words. And I had a hard time understanding what was happening, but this was my other perspective shift though. With that very first independent sentence, God is a good gift giver, that phrase became the theme for the thesis statement for our lives. God is a good gift giver. Now think about that. I needed God to give us some good gifts. I needed gifts. What were we supposed to do? Nothing was working. And excuse me, James 1:17 in the Bible says this. It says, every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. And that word gift in the original Greek is doriomai, and it means a bounty freely granted without requiring anything in return. God is a good gift giver. And so Josiah started sharing things that he knew somehow, elaborate things that I knew that he had no exposure to at school. I knew that he had no exposure to with us, and we were the only people in his life. Things that he would just know educationally, but also he would come forward with these things that were like, faith is believing for kites to fly when there's no wind in sight. He's like 7 years old at this point. And then he's like, faith is picture it done. I was like, that is the most simple and best description of faith I have ever heard. And then as time went on, he ends up sharing these things that I'm just going, how is he seeing things in heaven somehow? I don't really understand how this could happen. This is not a near-death experience situation. I'm looking on the internet trying to see, like, does this happen to people? Of course, I'm going, is this mental illness? Like, I'm grasping because I don't have any understanding of what exactly is happening, but I know it's happening. I'm seeing it before my eyes. And excuse me, one day he writes, each time I gab, tons of inspiring quotes are said. It's nutty to me that you don't post them on Facebook. I'm like, how do you even know what Facebook is? What? And I'm sitting there and you guys, this whole journey has been like me trying to overcome my fear, lay down my reputation. Like, what are people going to think of me? I don't want people to think I'm a crazy person or trying to exploit anything. I'm just like, this is happening. And then it's like these dares would come from Josiah, like, do this, do this. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll make a Facebook page. I'll invite my friends and my family that might be interested in seeing this. And so he I start sharing this stuff on Facebook, and it's just like, okay, this is amazing. But as time goes on, as I said, he keeps sharing these things of heaven. And one day I just decided I'm going to press him a little bit and try to get more information out of him. And I say, Josiah, can you like fill in the blanks to this? My favorite place in heaven is, and he wrote his first like poem. He wrote, my favorite place in heaven is over peaceful waters. Peace is real. Tired souls naturally test peace. Roses are so stunning. Worship the king. Sing loud to the prize pardon who requires praise. Angels taste of his holiness, ordained great attitude of praise. Help us worship the Lord together, please him. All you hail the King of majesty forever. Make a noise to the King on the throne. I almost melted into the floor. I'm like, holy. I don't know what else to say. Holy. How could somebody write something like that without having experienced something like that? And especially at that time, what, a 7, almost 8-year-old kid. I call up my mom and I tell her what he wrote, and she says, Tahni, my mom's a very religious, my mom has passed since, but very religious person. And she goes, Tahni, he's been there. He's been to heaven. And as time went on, Josiah started sharing more and more about these scenes in heaven. And he would have visions. He would have dreams. He would share these things. And of course, I'm getting these little bit by bit. And the dichotomy is so wild, because like these things are happening that are like beautiful and are like opening me up and myself, like they're healing places in me, healing places that I had been so broken in and so hurt by in this whole journey. And it's like, what is happening? Like I'm being pulled forward into a new understanding of life and what matters and all of these things, like through Josiah's experience. And yet at the same time, it's like he's going to school and he's still exhibiting all these behaviors. He's having a lot of issues with different transitions. Um, we still have all these manifestations of autism that we're dealing with. And then they're not working with him in this way, presuming competence at school. And so I'm trying to like kind of homeschool him a little bit on the side, or do any communication with him on the side and just kind of work through this. But it was like maddening, because I felt like I was living in alternate reality, but it was real. It was happening. And somehow more and more I was sharing things on Facebook, and things kept happening. And then I started sharing things in front of people, kept asking me to come and talk with them. And one thing led to another, and we published this book, Josiah's Fire. Autism stole his words. God gave him a voice. This is the beat up one, that's the one that gets used. Okay, so I just scarily, with much fear and trembling, I shared a bunch of our experiences in this book. The book gets published, and that's when things really got crazy, because people started contacting me. Like I said, I could not really find like a whole lot that was like what was happening with Josiah until I released this. And then I was on this show called It's Supernatural. And this show like went out around the world, and people started contacting me through the Josiah's Fire Facebook page, and saying, hey, your story is our story. My child also is on the severe end of the spectrum. He is non-speaking, and also he is very spiritual in nature. And it's like, thank you, lady, for letting the crazy out of the bag, because now I can talk to somebody about this. So I'm the crazy person who like opened up the opportunity for people to talk about this. But it was so wild because I kept having these mothers contact me and saying, your story is our story, your story is our story. And to the point where I started talking with them on the phone. Okay, like let me hear your story. And I created a secret Facebook page. And now we have like 50 some people on the secret Facebook page that have similar stories. And we are trying to support one another as moms and dads and like navigate through this. But what's wild is this is not an anomaly. This is not a savant thing. This is not a one person here, one person there. There are these gifts. And as a mom, I started like pressing in to Josiah's giftings. I thought I've spent so much of his life trying to focus on the weaknesses. I need to focus on the strengths. He has these strengths, he has these gifts. How can I help him be able to express himself using these gifts? Poetry was his best way of organizing his thoughts. It was like if he could write it in a poem, he could express himself in the most organized way. He could get it out what he was thinking. And over time he matured and was able to explain more about what he was experiencing and what he was thinking. And to the point where today he has his Facebook page and it's an outlet for him. I mean, I turned it over to him and said, whenever you want to post something, I'll post it. Like I'm not going to post anything if you don't want it posted. And it's been his way to connect with the world. His most recent Facebook post, he wrote this. He said, "Seas to a boat are as heaven is to earth, far and vast and full of treasures yet to be discovered. And yet we get to be on the adventure and feel that there is so much more to be known about both. And if a submarine can see the ocean deep, so can we plumb the depths, the heights, and the breadth of his largeness, and our small part within his very chest. It is like an explorer to search out to see if there is more, and if it can be known to us. Pass it through the filter of God's Bible, yet remember it is a filter and not the ocean itself. It is the Spirit of God that is tasted in the reading of his word. Lighted up, he is not just a taste, he is a feast. So let's fight for the feast." This is the sort of thing that is his, reality.
Hey, Tony.
Were you going to say something? Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell them the Abraham Lincoln story, please?
Sure. So one day Josiah was talking about how he was like educated in heaven. And he was talking about all of these different like historical figures and also, angels and things like that. And incidentally, like they sit at these triangle desks where there's this beautiful relationship between three different like students being educated, and they're all like solving problems together in this beautiful triangle way. Anyway, Abraham Lincoln, it was talking about how it's like they showed what was happening on Earth, and then they pulled kind of back the veil to show like how Abraham Lincoln was being influenced himself to, change the experience of slavery in America, and how he was basically like being prompted by the spiritual world. Does that mean someone has a question? I see a little hand.
It said you raised your hand. Go ahead.
Oh, I don't know how that happened, but hallelujah. Does that answer the question? So there are a lot of things like that, like historical figures.
Abraham Lincoln. Yes. So he went to school in heaven in the middle of the night. So these are kids that get up at 3 in the morning. Okay.
Yeah.
This is the kind of experience he's having. He's going to heaven to school, and then he comes back, and then he uses RPM and tells his mother what he learned last night. Okay.
Yeah.
And his teacher that night was Abraham Lincoln. And and then Abraham Lincoln's angel, right, also
Yeah.
said, told his side of the story of what was going on in heaven and how he was prompting Abraham Lincoln to end slavery. Okay, this is the
Right.
type of experiences that he's having. Yeah,
And that really helps a person too who doesn't see things in the spirit to go, wait, there's a lot more happening in the spirit around us that we don't recognize or know that these kids, so many of them can see. And both fearful, from the opposite side. When you get thoughts in your head like you're so ugly, you're so stupid, like that there's oftentimes actually a spiritual entity that's hammering you with that. Well, what if you saw that? And then there's big, glorious angels. Like, how do you handle seeing something like that? I'm going to bring it home so that we can go transition to the next, but this is what I wanted to share because I was having this experience. I had all these people that were contacting me, and then we're having a symmetry in the things that their children are experiencing. But I also had a woman contact me after reading our book or listening to the Audible, and she is a licensed psychologist, and her name is Lori Shayu, and she contacted me, and she has been a global leader in the field of psychology with 30 years of direct experience with children on the autism spectrum. She says she's worked in the educational system in preschool special ed, as well as having been trained in ABA, floor time, RDI, as well as other modalities. But due to her extensive and revealing work with especially non-speaking autistics, she ended up getting her master's also in spiritual psychology. Now, she contacted me a number of years ago, and we've kind of kept loose connection over the years. But and she comes kind of from a little bit different background, like a more open probably background than like a Christian background. And I appreciate having conversations with people of all different backgrounds because I think that we're pointing to the source, I call God Jehovah. But it is amazing because this is what she wrote to me. I asked her if she had something that she would like to say regarding that as a psychologist. And she wrote, I believe all individuals on the spectrum have a voice, and we must discover new ways to hear them and allow them to be heard. Those who appear most disconnected are usually those who are the most connected to the universe and higher dimensions. They are very aware of patterns, numbers, God, angels, spirit, source, and everything. It is connected in the quantum realm, including animals and nature. I have heard many personal stories. I have worked with many non-speaking autistics, and they are vibrating at a higher frequency. Being in their presence can raise your frequency. They may talk about the smells of colors or the emotions of sounds. She's also seen like this spelling sort of a thing. They may feel holistic pictures of something that they want to paint or build, and solutions may come to them in a whole piece as if downloaded in just one chunk. And so I wanted to share that from a 30-year clinical psychologist who was an ABA therapist who basically like got rocked one day and went, wait, these children have gifts. And that was another thing, like groups of people that were special ed teachers and paras got a hold of our book, and I would be contacted and say they're saying we have changed the way that we speak to these children because they're in there. This isn't just about getting them to like do these tasks and do this busy work. I'm realizing they have hopes, they have interests, they have gifts, they have dreams. What can I do to convey love and openness and understanding to them. And I'm like, that is the best compliment, that is what opened up this book. And I just want to end with this. I asked Josiah if he would share, if he wanted to share any word to you moms. And this is what he wrote just today. He wrote, I want to serve you by telling you that you are not late to sit there and to know this. Do birds sit with worries, or do they sit with direction? So will you work it out to know that it is okay for life to go slow? Distance is not short or long if the Spirit of God is involved. First you see it, and then you will do little by little what you need to, so that literally worry is not with you at all in the steps. You will stir up a story of firsts if you step out in the wisest ways. So that's our mission, moms. Our mission is to keep the light of their eyes ablaze. I don't know if there's like a break from between this and bringing on Houston and Katie, or
I'm afraid to switch over to that YouTube video because I don't want the sound to get messed up again. Right? So
yeah, well, maybe you can play it right at the end.
I'll play it at the end. Yeah. So so Katie, are you there?
Yes. Let me get my camera on.
So let me just say, this is so it's really cool because this is an example of people contacting me after they read the book saying, our story is your story. Quite a few years ago now, Katie contacted me and we had a conversation, and she was talking about her son, Houston. And Houston, it's just so awesome because Houston and Josiah were able to actually Zoom this week. And what was neat about it is, you know, we moms, a number of us moms, have been together supporting one another through this Facebook page that I have. But now our spellers are actually having scripture chats together on Zoom. So there's about 7, 8 of them that are encouraging one another and sharing with one another on Zoom once every 2 weeks. And so they're creating these beautiful conversations and the most beautiful ministry to each other and to us, who are, you know, they're people, they're caregivers. And so Houston is very much a mentor in this group. And when you'll see the video that we took of the two of them and just a little slice of their hour-long chat together, you'll see Josiah gets so emotional in Houston's presence because they have had the same experiences. They knew each other, they know each other in a different dimension. And that's one thing that you'll see and you'll hear as you keep hearing more and more stories, is somehow these guys and gals like know each other. There's this kind of web that they have where they intersect with one another, and that's like super mind-blowing. But it's also like, you know, you start realizing quantum physics and consciousness and science and all of these things really do support that. So it is a great pleasure that I got to connect with Katie in Houston and learn more about their experience. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys.
Everybody say hi, Houston. I don't know if can you hear them?
Barely, but that's okay. That's okay. All right, Houston has some things he wants to say, so I'm gonna just let him spell for a little bit. Do you want to try to speak?
Thank you. Justice is true.
Truth. Justice
Justice is here.
Justice is truth. Justice is here.
Listen
Listen.
to me.
Listen to me. Listen to Tahni. Our voice is true. It is real. It is honest. It is our gift from Christ to be his voice. We have seen the spiritual realm. We have seen the glory of the King, the love in the heavenly realm is more
Me.
wonderful, more beautiful, more powerful. The world is like a speck of dust when you see how great heaven is. Do not
Yeah.
doubt. Doubt is rotten. It rots away our prayers. It rots our hope. Faith is giving and receiving through believing he tells us the truth. Trust his promises in his word, his life.
It's time.
Justice means you have been given the way to give your child the answer to his prayers. They all talk to each other. They wait together, hoping and believing you
One.
will hear the truth. Start getting them a voice and never listening to any doctor, or teacher tell you he is not smart.
Good.
That's
Second,
not
second,
truth.
two with me.
It is,
Second,
what word was that?
yeah.
What word was that? Try to pronounce it.
False.
That is false. Outside our body
Two.
shows no reaction, but inside
He's gay.
our heart is
What?
what?
Huh?
Try to pronounce it. Broken.
Broken.
He said outside our hearts, or outside our bodies show no reaction inside our hearts are broken.
Mm.
Honesty
Honestly,
is what I'm telling you right now. Believe in your children. They hear your thoughts. Every one of them. And it shouts to them, I want another life. Don't think that. You have been given the opportunity to have a child who has gifts, more gifts than the most talented child. You should be thanking God that your child is autistic. It is more about love and spiritual wisdom than academics or sports. Life is about God. God is about and is love. The answer to life and to autism is get them a voice, love them, and love your life with them. God is bringing so many to see heaven, and it is life-changing to watch these children have the chance to speak for themselves through letters, how glorious God is. So, anyway,
Give us a quick summary of that.
I don't know how well you could follow all of that, but he was encouraging everyone. He was encouraging everyone to, he was encouraging everyone to love their child, see autism as a gift, to get them a voice, and to love their life as a parent of a child, especially of the most severe, to love their life because they'd actually been given a gift. God is using these children. He is bringing many to heaven. He is showing them the spiritual realm, and they want to share what they have experienced. And it will, when you experience it, it changes your life. And your life is never the same again. You do not look at life the same way. It is, you're not afraid of death. You're excited about things that are eternal. And your whole focus shifts.
Okay, Katie.
Mhm.
Last year, you and Houston were here with us speaking, right? And we got a little bit into the fact that Houston hears your thoughts, right?
Mhm.
We mentioned
Yes.
the synesthesia, that he sees colors when he hears sounds and music, right?
Mhm.
But we didn't really get into this side, the spiritual side of his visits to heaven.
Right.
And
So, I
that's why I
found
wanted to
out.
bring Tahni on to also speak about the same thing, just to verify that it's not just Houston, that this
It is
is
not.
a whole bunch of them.
Mhm.
And so I want you guys all to know that I called her afterwards to follow up. And she told me that Houston, because I want to share this with them. Houston was on the hill. And I'm going to let them explain what that is. And he spoke to some of your children on the hill and they said, now my mother will finally know and they will give me a voice. Right?
Yes.
Some of you
That's
that were
exactly
here
right.
last week that had nonverbal kids, they know Houston.
Yes.
Right? You have to understand what's going on spiritually with these kids. They're going back and forth to heaven, and they're going back and forth to this place that they call the hill, and they communicate with each other.
I want to very briefly explain that.
Yeah, if you read their books, okay, I forget which one of you, I think Katie, it was you, that when they meet another family of kids that are nonverbal, Katie and Houston would go to their house, and Katie would be talking to the parents, trying to convince them about RPM. And behind the scenes, Houston's talking to this nonverbal kid. In their minds, they were talking to each other. And the boy would say, now my parents will finally know. Now they'll give me a voice. One of their main messages is they're trying to get out about RPM, about please give these kids, a voice and bring them to S2C or to RPM to learn how to communicate. But once you do, and you open up that box, you're going to find out a whole lot more than you thought you were going to find out, which is what these moms are trying to share with you. Go ahead, Katie.
Yeah. So just so that to explain why they can do this, thought is energy. Their minds are, all of our minds are actually wired very much like a computer, and a computer and a radio. So thought is energy, and the reason that they can hear thoughts is because their minds both receive and transmit thought. Our minds also think, right? And thought is also energy in our minds. All of our thoughts are going out there. We just don't have the wiring to receive. But it works just like radios. And the way the brain also works is very much like a computer in that it runs programs. So when you have a thought, you start having that thought, you basically are creating a program. Now you're going to keep thinking that thought, you're going to start running that program. And it literally, I explained it in much more detail, but I'm just trying to kind of briefly explain. Thoughts become matter. That's what it actually talks about in the Bible. It's what quantum physics has proven. It's what all the neuroscientists explains. Thought becomes matter. That's why when Jesus said, the Father says to him, his son's just on the ground, rolling around, and he said, your disciples couldn't heal him. If you can, would you please have mercy and heal him? And Jesus's response was, if I can, all things are possible for the one who believes. So our beliefs literally become matter. When we take our beliefs and we claim God's word and God's promises to us and what he's already accomplished and what he's already promised us, that is how we receive. So when Houston said faith is giving and receiving come through believing, that's what he's trying to tell you. It is literally how it happens. When he says doubt is rotten, he's saying that literally you're undoing your prayers. And that would be the verse where it says, if you pray in doubt, do not think that you're going to get what you prayed for. We must come to a place of just really taking God at his word. And that's going to be hard because we have to undo a lot of doubt. And a lot of doubt comes from wrong thinking. And it is clear in his word that he loves us, that his name is actually Jesus Christ the healer. It's Jehovah Rapha, Christ the healer. He longs to heal us. He longs to answer us. He longs to provide for us. He longs to show us his love. Not yet. Not yet. Just wait. And so these are just all of the things that Houston is absolutely convinced of. And he's convinced because he has seen it. He has seen, not yet. He has seen the power of God to do miraculous things in his life, and he has seen it in the heavenly realm. And one day, I told this story, one day, he went to his, little camp, and they told me when he came back, he loved the dolphins. He was so happy. And I was really, and this was right at the beginning of his spelling. And I said, they told me that you love the dolphins. And he said, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said, it's horrible. Do not spend your money on that. Those animals were crying out to God that they were trapped. Like every one of their words was a song of prayer to God. And I said, now, of course, I was like horrified, first of all, for the dolphins. And then secondly, I was like, but they said you were really happy and you were so excited. What was that about? And he said, God showed me my healing in the stars. So the reality is there is much more going on out there than we can see with our five senses. The reality is the amount of information that we can sense with our senses, not theirs, is 4% of the 100%. So there's another 96% of energy that exists all around us. And this is scientific. This isn't even metaphysical. Like this is really just talking about energy that we cannot perceive. If we're only experiencing 4, how much more is going on out there that they can experience that is actually affecting our world. We're being affected by it. They do, this is not, a lot of people, it goes against the materialistic view that basically science has been based on, but there are many scientists out there right now that are doing phenomenal work showing that that these gifts, actually animals have these same gifts. This is how animals communicate. They've actually done many different studies with animals showing that they have very similar gifts. And it goes back to that whole thing where, you know, all creation yearns and groans for Christ to return, for the unveiling to be revealed, for the sons of God to be revealed, so that they can be redeemed, so that all creation can be redeemed. And I know I'm just giving you little glimpses and pieces, but I'll read you one little clip that Houston wrote, and this was several years ago. And okay, this is what he said. I said, during this time that Houston was sharing all the wonders of heaven he'd experienced, we attended a large event for those with disabilities. At the event, these individuals with profound developmental disabilities were asked what their gifts were. I had to hold back tears listening to their answers. In a world that ignores and disregards them in the ugliest ways, they repeatedly claimed that their gifts were to tell people about Jesus and to love people and love Jesus. And Houston told me they are witnesses to God that most would deem retarded. You see, even though that word isn't used in conversation, people still think it, and our kids still hear it. And yet, and this is Houston continuing, and yet the room is filled with people who are white and gold because they can see everyone's auras. That word is so arming to me. It has its root in devaluing souls who love Jesus completely. You see, they are white and gold. They know and live for what is really important in life. They trust Jesus, and so should we. And I remembered that, you know, back in Joel, was it Joel 2:28 and Acts 2:17, it says that our young men would dream dreams. And then I remembered in Luke 14, where it's talking about Jesus is describing the kingdom of heaven, and he compared it to a feast, that the important guest who had been invited, they rejected the invitation because they had better things to do. And so the master had the lame, the blind, the crippled, the disabled, and the poor brought to the feast instead. And then in 1 Corinthians 1:27, God said, God chose what is foolish in the world to shame the wise. God chose what is weak in the world to shame the strong. He has chosen our children, the weak, to reveal himself to and to share the glories that await those who trust in his name. And that is why Houston is telling you that you've been given this incredible gift. And it truly is. It's changed our lives, and I can't even look at life the same way anymore.
So I want you guys to know, I've been talking to them, you know, over the past couple of weeks leading up to this. And, you know, like I said, Houston they just go back and forth to heaven like they're stepping through a door, basically. And Houston talked to Robbie. And Robbie told him he tries to communicate to me, but I can't hear him because I'm always too busy. And what you guys, when I spoke, I told them that that's what I do. I just keep myself too busy all the time. Houston didn't know that. He doesn't know me, you know? Mm-hmm. So I thought that was pretty amazing. So, okay, guys, it's getting late, but any final thoughts that you want to wrap it up?
Mhm.
Can I share something real quick? This book came out by a Christian guy, skeptical journalist guy. And God used Josiah to share things to this guy prophetically about his life. Many, 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 many things. He didn't know him. I didn't know him. And it ended up completely changing his life. So Jesus, Josiah, and Me by Max Davis. again, I'm like, I can't even figure out why something like that would have ended up being published, but only to say that the reason why these things kind of happen is I really believe that God is trying to confirm and affirm these things that people want to be skeptical about, and you can be skeptical. You can think whatever you want to think. It's the sort of thing where once you've experienced these things, there's no going back. You just can't take it back. It is what it is. You've seen what you've seen. And I think that God putting out like little lines and saying, will you believe it? Will you believe it? Will you? Because once you say yes to something, to be open to something, then the next challenge or dare or test can be brought before you. But if you close that off, and if you just say, no, that can't be, and you just kind of go down that line, you're just not going to be at the feast. You're not going to be able to be at the feast. So I just wanted to mention that.
And Tahni, I'm so glad that you brought that up. I was hoping that you would, just so people get an idea. So Max lives in Louisiana, right? And Tahni and Josiah are in Minnesota, and they're not even in the same time zone or part of this country, like clearly opposite ends. And Josiah was hearing Max's prayers and literally sending messages, through, typing them out for Tahni, and Tahni was sending them to Max going, here's what Josiah said. And poor Max is like, how does he know this?
And I'm like, poor me, because this guy's going, what is with this lady? And I'm like, I don't want to tell these things.
And then, and like I had Houston, like they all talk, right? And that's the hill, right? They all basically, the minds all converge. So they can all talk to each other like a CB radio. That's really kind of what it's like, is they all are, that's the hill, is they don't have to be in the same place to be able to communicate, just like we don't have to be on the same place right now. We're in all different places. But through technology, through essentially the transference of thought through electromagnetic energy, we're able to communicate. So that's kind of behind that. But we were meeting with this one young man, first time we'd ever met him. And Houston sits down, and he wanted to spell with another fluent speller. And they were from Indiana, I think. Indiana, I'm pretty sure. And Houston, the very first thing he spells, can you hear me when we teach? And the mom had no clue what was going on. And she goes, what's he talking about? What does he mean? And so for me, it was like wonderful confirmation, because the boy sits there, I'm sorry, I keep saying boy, he was like 21, but he spells out, it's my favorite part of the day. And the mom had no idea that this communication was even going on. We asked another young man who's in Ohio, and his mom had no idea either. And the question was the same, can you hear when we teach? And this young man spelled out ALWAYS, always. They are hungry for companionship, for relationship. Stay. Well, he's running off, sorry. For relationship, for communication, for purpose. And what we have to recognize is, by acknowledging these gifts and not disregarding them because it's scary and it's something new and we don't understand it, but these gifts give them incredible purpose and incredible value. And that's something that the world has denied them. So I want to encourage you to embrace these gifts, embrace communication, and give them the voice so that they can be recognized for their incredible worth.
Awesome. And can I just add one thing too? Again, not everybody has children that are non-speaking. And obviously we have really been, at that space. it's very interesting because even in the spellers online teaching group that I'm in right now, what they're doing is they're finding that those that are minimally speaking or unreliable speakers, maybe have a lot of echolalia, things like that, they're being able to get them to spell and be able to express themselves, even if they have a lot of language, they're talking all the time, they're able to get them to slow down and get some depth out of their thoughts, you know, to be able to express that. The second thing, which I think is absolutely astonishing and really cool, is that they're finding that children with Down syndrome that are non-speaking are being able to be opened up. And really the question is going, wait a second, are these intellectual disabilities at all? This is far much more like a apraxia, dyspraxia, motor movement problem, and what has been talked about as being like what we see out here and diagnosed as such, is that actually the reality? Are we really talking cognitive, intellectual issues? And how many people is that really? No.
The reason why these tests are unreliable is because they base everything on behavior, and they take behavior and equate it with intelligence. And you have to, the problem with that is all intelligence tests require the ability to plan and organize your motor. So if you have any kind of motor impairment, any kind of apraxia or dyspraxia or catatonia or any of those issues, how on earth are you going to pass their intelligence test? And it goes back to that whole skewed value system where it's based on behaviorism, materialism, and everything has to have proof. And we're trying to provide as much proof as we can to show you that there is much more that is going on that is outside of the realm of the 5 provable materialistic senses.
Okay, awesome. All right, thank you guys. Thank you so much for being with us.
And you'll show the video of these two?
I'm gonna show it. I'm not gonna show it now. So guys, on the Lemonade Moms Facebook page, I'm gonna show, there's a video of them communicating with each other. Okay, I'll post it there. Okay, so that you guys can watch it. Katie is on that page too. So if you have any questions for her, yeah, or for Houston, you can tag her on the Lemonade page and talk to her there. And Tawny will have to get you on there too. And you can follow Josiah's Fire is a page on Facebook as well. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.